I feel like when you have the later addition to a series book where it's been a while, it's always hit or miss. Is this going to be really good, knock it out of the park? Is it going to not land so well? And this one did a little bit of both. Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm going to be talking about Absolution by Jeff VanderMeer, which is the fourth book in Southern Reach, which was originally a trilogy, which was Annihilation and Authority and Acceptance. And this is a series that pretty much everyone that I've seen has agreed that Annihilation is the strongest book. After reading the trilogy, I would agree. Annihilation was the strongest book. It just kind of had that feeling of just, you didn't know what was going on, that mystery, that just odd feeling with what we're going on, being in Area X with a very compelling first-person POV. And the second book shifted in a way that I think didn't land for a lot of people, and I didn't dislike it as much as some. The third book kind of brought it back a little bit, but it's just still kind of neither one, while still being good, solid, and absolutely worth a read, neither one really just gave me the same feeling as the first book. So I was very curious how Absolution was going to fit in. Was this going to be another one where it's just kind of going off in a different direction? Was this going to bring it back to that feeling? And as alluded to, it does a little bit of both. I will say, though, it mostly started really good. So the description doesn't actually say who the POV is. And I know that Jeff VanderMeer did specify who the POV was prior to publication, but in case you don't know, I won't specify. But we're following two different POVs, one of them for about 70% of the book, one of them for about 30% of the book. And the POV that we're following for the first 70% or so, it took me a little bit to get into because it started kind of weird in how we were finding things out and seeing things, but I ended up getting really, really pulled in. It was a character that I think, although what was happening was very different from Annihilation, it ended up kind of bringing that feel where there were so many questions, there were so many things going on, because this is going back and showing you things that happened before. It does fill in a lot of blanks, give a lot of answers. While of course, you know, it's this series, there are still so many more questions, but you get to see a lot of how things went. So it's fascinating. It gives you answers. It gives you a lot of things that you were probably curious on after reading the first three and wanted to know more about. So those are all really positives. And although the character at first I didn't feel super connected to or invested in, I really got pulled in. And so the first 70%, if that was this book, this would be high 4, maybe even 5 stars, because I really, really enjoyed it. The issue is there's 30% more of book with a different POV, which I did not care for. And the thing is, it wasn't just that I didn't care for it, it felt unreadable at points. To explain why, I'm going to mention that in this book, there are over 1,000 uses of some variation on the F word. All but about 50 of them take place in the last 30% in our new POV. It is just constant, in the middle of sentences, repeated over and over again, to the point where it literally, I felt myself just start skimming anytime I was seeing it because there was nothing of substance there. And in a book, in part of a series where weird details can be very important, even if they're just quick, that's not a good thing when I feel like I don't even want to specifically read it. So that knocked my enjoyment down on this quite a lot. If it would have started with that, I don't know if I would have read this book, because the first 70%, our first POV, very, very strong, very compelling, did a lot of great stuff, kind of gave me anything that I would have wanted out of this, including the ending of that POV. The way we left things was really just, it was kind of ambiguous, like you would expect in some ways, but it also just, it felt so fitting. And then we go to another POV, which I will say, it does get a little bit better the further you get in, and it's not as constant, but there's just, it felt like I was just literally reading nonsense at some points. And I get what the author was going for, but I really wish he wouldn't have done it the way that he did it. For me, it just felt very unnecessary and like I said, quite literally unreadable at points, because there would be some paragraphs, passages where I'm just like, I can't even read this. And also just reading it normally, when you're just throwing in curse words in the middle of sentences that don't fit at all, it was like almost like a nervous tick. which isn't quite what it is, because I thought at first maybe that's what he's going for. It's not even quite what it is there, but just it made it very difficult to read and have any sort of flow, and so it was jarring, not in a good way. Jeff VanderMeer has done some jarring things that have ended up working well. This was not one of them for me. Although, like I said, you do find out some other things. You get to see some other things, and I think it's a POV that makes sense that we got, as well as it provides a little bit more insight, which is what you're looking for. But like I said, for me, the first 70%, that was Absolution, and the last 30%, I just could have almost done without. And that's not great. So that really, really brought down my enjoyment of this. So that's not to say that you shouldn't read it, or even that. Yeah, it's one of those things where I don't know that other people are going to be as bothered as I was by it. And it's not that I find the language objectionable. It was just obnoxious. Trying to, like I said, it made it very difficult to read because it kept interrupting sentences, or just having it repeated, or just these tangents, these things that just made it so difficult to care or get through, because it just didn't feel like it was adding any value at all in the way that it was being written. So for me, I found it obnoxious and annoying, and it really, really brought down my enjoyment. I still think, though, barring the first 70%, really, really, really good. I ended up about 3 stars on this, though, because of the last 30%. Because it was going to be definitely, this might be technically a little higher than 3, but not high enough to round to 4. That's for sure, with having to read that. This is still something, though, I think, to get into my general thoughts after I'm done with that little tangent there. This is, I think, if you're somebody who enjoyed the series and wanted more, this is a must-read. Especially with what you're finding, the way you're doing it, you're getting so much more, and it's this series, I feel like, is never gonna, and this book's not intended to wrap things up, and I don't think the author's ever going to. It's not really intended to do that, but it gives you more, and it gives you more in some really interesting ways, and really just fills in a lot of things, gives you some more theories, some things to think about. I will say that I know some people seem to say that Acceptance did not give a lot of answers. Acceptance really did give some serious answers, and this kind of adds more to the mystery, while giving you enough that you can kind of formulate your own thoughts on what's going on and what actually happened. But really, really great read for the first section there, which is 2/3 of the book, and it gives you all that. So if you like Southern Reach and you wanted more, this is definitely something that's a must read, I would say. If you really, really liked Annihilation but weren't super keen on the other books, I still think, honestly, this will be more of a return to form, because this, while still quite different, did bring back some of the feel of Annihilation for me, just because it's a combination of Annihilation where we're really just focusing on Area X, and then the other 2 books where we're looking at Area X, but we're also looking at Central and the outside world and other things. We're doing sort of a mix in Absolution in a way that I think works. It gets the best elements of both and meshes it into something that's really, really strong and solid, and, like I said, very compelling. Definitely more compelling than the character from book 2, who I know everybody hates, and I didn't hate, but I did not feel connected to either. So you will see some characters that you know and recognize here as well. Absolutely you will. And just some little things too. Some characters that were more peripheral, some characters that were pretty important. But yeah, it's I don't want to spoil anything, because I feel like most people, if you read the series, you probably kind of know at least some of the things you're going to look at here. But I've been trying to be very vague, because I feel like the blurb was decidedly vague, and it was just like, we're going back to Area X for new stuff, so I don't want to ruin anything. But so despite my complaints about the last 30%, which I'm so mad that that's what he decided to do with that, but this still was definitely worth a read for your Area X fans. Definitely worth checking out, and I think for the most part, you're not going to be disappointed with the overall impact of this book, even if you're like me and aren't a fan of the way the last bit was written. I don't think you're going to be disappointed here, so definitely it's one to check out. Really, those are my thoughts, though, on Absolution by Jeff VanderMeer. This one will be coming out later this year. I'll have a link to it where you can find where it is. It's not like an affiliate link or anything, but it's a link to it if you're interested in pre-ordering it already. I feel like most people who are probably have already done so, but hey, I'll put it there to make it easier, because it's going to be coming out. And so definitely let me know your thoughts on Area X. Is this one that you're excited for? Is this one that you were kind of nervous for? I'd be curious if you're seeing this before, what made you want to check this out. Otherwise, if you're seeing it after, let me know your thoughts on anything that I said. If you've now read the book, I'd be curious to hear from others too. I'll be very interested to talk about the spoiler once it's out too, and I can talk a little more freely about it with people. So there was that. That's it for this one though. Make sure to give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Check in the description as always for my links, including my Patreon if you want to support me on there and support what I do, as well as the Wizardly Enclave Discord where you can chat about books, whether this book, other books, really anything at all. It's a lot of fun and we'd love to have you. And of course, if you enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe.